Man, I love when former NBA players talk shit and they backtrack.
Yeah, I mean, we've gotten a lot of it this. Well, we haven't got any backtracks from Matt Barnes. He hasn't walked back what he said, but I feel like that is coming soon, so especially when Detroit starts winning. But this thing that we're about to play with Gilbert Arenas it's pretty incredible. And as much as I loved watching Gilbert Arenas play when he was playing in the NBA as Agent Zero Hibachi, lighting people up for like 60. It was great, but I love watching him squirm and a little bit more. Like that video of him talking about Isaiah Stewart, that was better than anything he's ever done in the NBA, I think. That was just too funny and had me laughing, rolling, really. I enjoyed it.
It did. For you guys that don't know what we're talking about, we're going to play 2 clips so you guys know what the hell we're talking about, so you guys can kind of get in on this conversation and this topic that we are talking about. So this was a clip from Gilbert Arenas' Instagram. It was like a 12-second teaser. He said, he's going to talk about Isaiah Stewart, and here it is.
And then he started telling me, I don't like what you said. Me, I don't give a fuck what you talking about, young fella. Get your punk ass on in the game and get the playing fall. Whoop your ass up in.
So wait, there's more. There's more, Lance.
Okay.
There's more. Not even 12 hours later, he posts this on his Instagram.
Mentally, I was getting ready to size him up. And then I realized, you ain't about to drag me all up and down here. Because he looked like the type that'll drag you and never say nothing. Wasn't going to let it happen. I was literally, hey, big fella. Hey, I said, what? Oh, no, I didn't mean it like that. But he was confused. He thought I called him. And he said some shit. This one, I knew I didn't want these problems. He said this. Yeah, you said that I didn't get crazy until I got around my teammates. I ain't got my teammates now. I literally did this. There you go. And then I had to think about what he was saying. Shit. He got no teammates. Oh my God. He was ready to pack me out, right? He was ready to put me all up in the figure four. What is wrong with you? What's wrong with you? I felt like Money Mike when Damon walked in the bathroom. Hey.
What you doing? Phone book, nigga. I ain't even in the phone book.
Anytime I go out of town, God damn it, I'm gonna be packed. Just in case one of you other country motherfuckers try that shit. Woo! I got my Pistons uniform ready to go. I told you, boy, I was at the game, baby. He dunked. Yeah.
Break it down, niggas.
I became a Pistons fan right after that. Brandon Jennings and McCants was playing on the other team. Nigga, I started booing them. Just in case he was looking.
This is a lot to unpack, man. This is... I find it funny that he goes and's like, he's acting all hard. Like, you don't want these problems. Don't tell me how to talk. To 12 hours later, like, I don't want no problems. I'm going to be cheering for you.
So that's kind of my question. Was the video that we played before, that was 12 hours before that, but then Isaiah Stewart randomly encountered him at an airport within that 12 hours and he made a new video? Or was that an older video? So
the first video we played was 24 hours ago, saying, you don't want no problems with me. Isaiah called him out on Instagram, but he has since deleted what he said. Basically called him a pussy boy, all this shit, called him a clown. Then Gilbert posted that video today saying, I don't want no problems with you. Like, we good now. We square. I didn't mean it like that. So he completely backtracked, and it's so funny. This isn't the first time that Pistons fans and Pistons players have made him backtrack. I remember we were talking earlier this year, and he comes on his show with the Tayshaun Prince jersey after he was talking about shit about Detroit, saying no one wants to go to Detroit. It's a shit city. He's backtracking again. I don't know why he continues to just try to shit on the Pistons players in the city of Detroit. Like, every time Detroiters come with the smoke. And this time it was Isaiah Stewart. That's not a player or a person I would want to mess with. Guy's like 6'8", 250. And
he's a boxer too, like from what I remember.
Yeah.
Who wrote the article? It might have been James Edwards, but before he played basketball, I think he grew up boxing. I could be wrong about that, but I thought Isaiah Stewart grew up boxing. And yeah, you don't want to mess with someone that actually has trained as a fighter, if that part is true, unless I'm just misremembering it. It's stupid. I'm always like, anytime in my younger life, like if I was ever getting an altercation, I always check people's ears, because if they had cauliflower ears, I'm like, nope, I'm just going to back away. I'm going to apologize. Let me buy you a drink. I'm sorry, because I am not a fighter. But if I see someone with cauliflower ears, I know not to mess with them, because they scrap for real. And Isaiah Stewart, by all accounts, doesn't look like he has cauliflower ears, but I'm pretty sure that dude's motor that we see on the floor just continues no matter what he's doing. And even if you try to defend yourself, he's not going to stop until you're hurt. So good. And I'm actually like pretty proud of Isaiah Stewart for really standing up for himself, not to be made the butt of a joke. Because we all really know what was going through his head when he wanted to go at LeBron James. I mean, I feel like most of us in that situation where we get hit in the mouth, we would want to do the same thing. And it kind of sucks that he has to defend himself, but I'm glad he did it as well.
Same here. And I think a lot of Pistons fans, Detroiters, they gained a lot of respect for him.
Oh, yeah.
Not only did he confront Gilbert Arenas, he saw him out in public and said, heard you were talking some shit, and he confronted him, and Gilbert completely just backtracked. And I think he probably gained some respect for Isaiah Stewart in the same breath too. You have to understand, he does host one of the most popular shows with Underdog Fantasy.
Yeah,
they get a shitload of views every time they do a podcast. It's a great podcast. I even though he does talk shit about Detroit, I still find myself going back and watching it, just because of the former players on there, like Brandon Jennings. I think even Kenyon Martin's made it a couple appearances here and there. And Rashad McCants is just pure comedy, because some of the takes he has are just so in left field that you're like, dude, what are you on? But I absolutely love this for Isaiah Stewart. I love that he stuck up for himself and the Detroit Pistons too. He's not a punk, and absolutely love that for him. He's got that dog in him that we already knew he had.
How would you feel, though, if he actually, like, straight up attacked? No, I shouldn't even say attacked, but if he actually fought Gilbert Arenas, like, if he gave him a two-piece, like, would you – I mean, it would be funny if it happened, but also at the same time, would you be like, dude, why are you doing that? Would you have a different tune about this if that's what had happened?
I mean, if it happened, I'd probably have the same opinion and reaction. Like, you were talking a lot of shit. And mind you, like, the LeBron fight happened, 2 years ago?
Yeah, Sadiq Bey was.
Why are you still bringing it up? Like, yeah, I wouldn't have a problem, like, if you did it. Now, obviously, I'm not the NBA or the league. That would be a huge suspension and a fine, because, you're an NBA player, and, you have to act like one. But I don't think Isaiah Stewart is stupid enough to do that. But to your question, no, I wouldn't, feel any differently. Like, he's sticking up for himself, and I respect the man when he does stick up for himself.
Okay. Do we are we going to talk about the Bleacher Report thing? I know we were talking about that before we came on, but I think it was Bleacher Report top 100 players.
Yeah, we can get into that. I did see some Rockets fans really upset with this list because Jalen Green was ranked 80.
That's not bad.
But if you look at all the players in his draft class that went in the top four, they're way above him.
Are they more upset that he's 80, or Cade was 39th, I believe?
Cade was 39. Yeah, Cade was ranked above Evan Mobley and Scotty Barnes and Jalen Green.
About damn time, dude. Dude, that is so crazy how basketball bloggers and fans and other content creators are now talking about Cade Cunningham just because of the whole Team USA Select thing. That was so good for his game to have those clips. And then the Rico Hines. I don't know if Rico Hines had the same impact that Team USA Select had, but those Team USA Select highlights, they really showcased his abilities and really put him on the forefront of basketball conversation. And I'm glad 39th is huge because he only played 12 games last year. We're talking 72 or 84 games, something like that, for his entire career so far. Games played, like he pretty much has only played one full season of basketball in the NBA, and he's already ranked 39th. I'm not arguing with it. I think it's a great number. I would have, like, you know me, I would have put him ahead, all three of those guys, no matter what, if I was coming up with a list, because I think he is actually better than him. But it's just nice to know that the rest of the basketball world is waking up to his abilities on the floor.
Yeah, I think to your point, it's a mixture of both. I think when those USA select team highlights did come out, Cade looked like the floor general that we know he is, Detroiters and Pistons fans. We know that he's that guy. And we don't really get the national coverage that some of the other players in, that USA select team gets, like Austin Reeves, for example. He's a Laker. He gets like half of his games televised nationally because he's in LA. But I like the fact that Cade was 39. It shows you that even though Bleacher Report, sometimes we were talking about their list last week, they can be really bad. I think even they're like, you know what? If this guy is healthy, on the cusp, he's a top 25 player in the league. And you can't really say that about a Scotty Barnes, even though he did win Rookie of the Year and he's a great defensive player. Don't get me wrong. Offensively, it's not there yet. Evan Mobley can be a defensive anchor if Jared Allen is out there supporting him, but we really don't know what his ceiling is right now if Jared Allen isn't on that basketball team. I think Jalen Green, one of the best scorers I've seen, evaluating coming out of the draft. I think he has all the tools to be a 30-point per game scorer. But if he's not scoring, what else is he doing for you on the floor? I think Cade Cunningham is the most complete player out of his draft class. And I think that ranking of 39th from Bleacher Report of the top 100 players for going into this season, I love it. I think he's getting the respect he finally deserves, like you were saying.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Cade, Jalen Green, Evan Mobley, and Scotty Barnes, they all have holes in their game right now. But Cade, you can call it Pistons bias, whatever. I don't care. He has the most complete game out of all four of those guys. There's no doubt in my mind. He looks like a two-way player. He can hurt you from the mid-range. He can attack the basket. The three-point shot's coming back. He's a playmaker for others. He may not be like a defensive player of the year candidate, but it wouldn't surprise me if he is on an all-defensive team at some point. I forget what account, and it was a couple weeks ago, but they were highlighting his defense and how he's a smart, cerebral player, can stay in front of his guys. He may not rack up the assists or the blocks. I mean, the steals or the blocks, but he knows how to stay in front of his guy, and he knows how to make it difficult for his opponent. And Jalen Green, I feel like right now, and maybe it's too early to tell, but it feels like he's just going to be more of an offensive nightmare for people. Like, he'll probably have the most 50-point games out of anybody out of that draft class. I mean, maybe not really, but like it kind of feels like he could have multiple 50-point games just because of how explosive he is going towards the rim and just how complete of an offensive player he is. Evan Mobley, he's really not the two-way player that some Cavaliers fans want him to be. He can't carry a team offensively. Just right now he can't. Defensively, he's good. I mean, I think he was an all-defensive team member last year. I feel like that was a little too early because he was only in his second year, and I felt like the defense was so bad without Jared Allen that it was kind of premature to give him that honor already. And then Scotty Barnes, I mean, I love Scotty Barnes. I'm not going to deny that. I'm not even going to say anything bad about Scotty Barnes. I just love his game and what he brings to a team. The only knock on his game is right now he doesn't really look like a franchise player. He's like Cade Light to a degree. He can do everything Cade can do, probably a better defender. He just doesn't have the offensive bag where you're like, he can go out and get us a bucket, but he can't go out and get us a bucket, but Cade can. I think that's the biggest difference between those two players. But yeah, that's my analysis of all four of those, right? All four of those guys right now.
Yeah, for sure. I think Scotty Barnes and Cade, to me, are the two most complete players, like in the top four. I think if Scotty Barnes develops a jump shot, he could be on par with Cade. But like I said, he's still in that process of developing his game. But There was another Piston on this list, and that was Bojan, and he was actually tied with Dylan Brooks at 94.
That's how I thought he was 89. They were the only two Pistons, right? Bojan and Cade.
I do want to say they did give an honorable mention to Jaden Ivey in their article, which I respected, saying like, hey, like he's a good player. We just don't feel like he's a top 100 player. The fact that he was an honorable mention, I think, got my respect. And I was like, they're saying like he can get to become a top 100 player. But getting back to the Bojan and Dylan Brooks thing, someone had just posted, Bojan was averaging 22 points, almost shot 50, 40, 90 for the year.
Yeah.
And like starting lineup sometimes had Corey Joseph in it. Like the second best player he played with was Jaden Ivey. And that's no slight of Jaden Ivey. Like that team was so injury riddled last year that the fact that Bojan in his 30s is putting up 22 points a game on like elite efficiency, to me, I thought he deserved to be a little bit, maybe 80s, low 70s. He just had such a phenomenal season.
Yeah, I don't have the list in front of me, and I cannot pull it up right now just because I'm on one computer versus two, and I'm in a basement right now doing the podcast. So I'm away from my actual, I call it studio at my house. So I'm not going to be able to look. Yeah. Who else who are the four players ahead of him in the 90s? Who's like 90, 91, 92, 93?
Give me a second. I got to go on Bleacher Report because sometimes I have OCD really bad and I got to delete everything. But let me see the top 100 players. Here we go. So you wanted to know who was above Bojan?
Yeah, just 90, 91, 92, and 93. I just want to hear the names.
Okay, give me a second. I clicked on the wrong one. I apologize. My internet is like crap. If you guys are listening, never get WoW. It is the worst internet. Even though it's cheap, it is the worst internet to ever buy.
And Charter paid Anthony to say that. It's crazy.
I don't even think we have Charter out here.
Oh, for real? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I have no idea what you guys have for providers. I thought it was the same everywhere.
No, I've never even heard of Charter.
Or Spectrum, whatever.
Okay. I'm sorry. I don't know why I said Dylan Brooks. Bojan and Benedict Mathurin were tied for 94.
Ooh, that kind of changes the Jaden Ivey thing.
Okay.
Just
a little bit. Yeah. One was fifth, one was sixth. So the players that were above Bojan and Benedict Mathurin were, it looks like, Bleacher Report is on some bullshit today.
With those
John Collins.
Okay.
So John Collins was 93.
Ooh. Okay.
Keegan Murray was 92.
Okay. I thought he'd be up there. For some reason, I thought Keegan Murray.
RJ Barrett was 91.
Mm.
And 90th was Devin Vassell.
See, I feel like Bojan, honestly, could be ranked ahead of all those guys. I don't think anybody would complain about it either because he had a phenomenal year shooting the ball. It's not to say those guys didn't, but John Collins, he had a down year. I'm not saying he's not a top 100 player, but he had a down year last year, and I'm guessing the list was based on last season. So I kind of got a problem with that. And Keegan Murray, yeah, he had a great rookie year, but was his rookie year really better than Bojan's season? And I think you could just say statistically, you cannot account for team success into an individual player's list. And then,
yeah.
Go on.
No, I mean, I think you're making valid points. It's just the only player that I would disagree with this list is I think Keegan Murray actually needs to be at the 90s because I think he had such a great year. Shooting 41% from three, that's an accomplishment. 45% from the field, that's a great accomplishment. I think Keegan Murray shouldn't be in the 90s, and I don't think Bojan should be in the 90s either. Obviously, you have to take the overall game, not just one side of the basketball. And
yeah,
we both know, even being hardcore Detroit Pistons fans, and this is a Pistons podcast, we can both agree he's not a lockdown defender by any means.
Hell no. I'd probably have a chance of scoring on him. Just kidding. Don't save that. No, I think, again, I'm not saying remove any of those players from the list. I'm just saying I think his season last year, and again, the list is just based on last year. He should have been a little higher. I think he should have been above those guys listed above him. And because, I mean, he was, like you were said earlier, he was doing it on his own. He had nobody. The roster, the guys were hurt. There was no Cade. The best player he played with was Jaden Ivey, then Jalen Duren. I mean, he was sharing the floor with the G Leaguers for a little while, and he was still getting it done. He had an incredible shooting year, being the number one guy on a team offensively. I think he should be a little bit higher. And again, I don't want to get into this too much, but if Benedict Mathurin made the list, Jaden Ivey should have been on that list as well. Because I think Jaden Ivey had overall a better rookie year than Benedict Mathurin. And I think a lot of people would agree. Benedict Mathurin had a hot start to the season, but there were no talks about him towards the end of the year. But there were talks about Jaden Ivey. So, I don't know. I think that's kind of a wash between those two. So, I think if Benedict Mathurin was on it, Jaden Ivey should have been on it as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to make that argument with Benedict Mathurin, show some context. Tell the people that Benedict Mathurin wasn't a starter. He came off the bench as kind of in that 6-man role, and he was putting up 16 points a game against twos, not once. Jaden Ivey went up against the best point guards and shooting guards night in and night out. I'm not gonna like get mad over it or anything. He's 94. It's not like he was like 20 or something like that, The fact that he even got an honorable mention, I'm okay with. I truly am. I'm just happy that Bleacher Report is giving Cade Cunningham his respect. And because I think a lot of people this year, I think you're going to be really surprised, Lance. I think a lot of people nationally are going to be it's going to be Cade Cunningham glazing like crazy. Yeah, I know that sounded really bad, pause, but it's going to be bad. Like I've seen it this summer. Like ESPN doesn't talk about the Pistons. You got Brian Windhorst and all those guys talking about Cade Cunningham was the best player at Team USA Select. Like every time I look, ESPN is, hyping up Cade Cunningham, or, the Ringer's hyping up Cade Cunningham. I think you're going to see a lot of media members shift that narrative that Cade Cunningham is that guy.
Do you think we'll get articles like we have about Anthony Edwards talking about how Cade should be playing in a bigger market? I hate that. I hope that does not come. I have a feeling it's going to come, and it's going to just piss me off. It's going to irritate me. I try to stay away from articles. When I read that title, I don't even know who wrote it, but I'm just so glad there are so many people on social media talking about that writer and that article. There were jokes being made on Twitter about, wow, Anthony Edwards, he had 35 points in Team USA game, but we don't know about it because he doesn't play for LA or New York. And it just made me laugh. I'm like, man, I'm so glad we're actually calling these guys out, because I hate those type of articles. How many Pistons, though, do you think eventually crack Bleacher Report's top 100? Do you think we got 4 guys on the team?
Just thinking about the core, like Jalen Duren could have a breakout year. He could crack the top 100. I think Cade's going to be in it. I think Jaden Ivey could crack that top 100. Yeah. Do I say Asar could crack that top 100 depending on at some point? You never know, man. He might just come out the gate just locking people up, scoring the basketball, playing, just that Amadou Diallo role this year, and just being fun and like being on highlight tapes and highlight reels. Like if Asar plays that Hami role, dude, like holy shit.
It's gonna be fun. Man, I can't wait. I have a feeling all 4 of them will crack the top 100 list for Bleacher Report at some point in their careers. I'm not going to say next season. I'll say 3, though, crack the top 100 next season. Cade, Ivey, and Duren all will be Bleacher Report top 100 players. The greatest honor in basketball any player can achieve is Bleacher Report's top 100.
So before we do jump to the next topic, which is going to be talking about Troy Weaver and top 10 lists he actually made, I want to give a shout out to my buddy Oscar, who runs a Orlando Magic fan page.
Okay.
And he was kind of talking about what you were talking about with national media members about Team USA. And everyone's just kind of like Austin Reeves this, Austin Reeves that. It's like Austin Reeves, led them in scoring. He actually made a video on his Instagram talking about how Paolo Banchero isn't getting any kind of national love from these media members because they're just talking about Austin Reeves because he's in a bigger market. And Paolo Banchero had a phenomenal, Team USA. I think what is it, the FIBA World Cup?
Yes, the FIBA World Cup.
Yeah, like he's having a really, great FIBA World Cup run right now, and they're just talking about Austin Reeves because he plays for the Lakers. Same with Anthony Edwards. He's not really getting a ton of media attention unless it's him arguing with Steve Kerr, saying Steve Kerr says, we don't have a Kobe on the bench, or Kobe came off the bench, and he's just like, well, we don't have a Kobe on this team. It just seems like a lot of the media is just hyper focused on Austin Reeves and others.
Well, they did talk about, there was one quote where they were talking about Anthony Edwards, and he said something about the Miami Heat. He can see why they're like such a well-ran organization because of Eric Spoelstra. And then I feel like other national media writers started picking back on that and started talking about him playing in a larger market. And that's been like, there've been some accounts that have talked about Anthony Edwards in the game he had today. I know Team USA lost against Lithuania. Lithuania put up a hell of a fight, and they shot, I think, like 56% from three. It was a crazy game to watch. Like, it was, I enjoyed it even though Team USA lost. But there were some accounts highlighting Anthony Edwards having 35 points. But then there were other accounts just talking about him not playing in a big enough market and how Minnesota won't do good by him. And I don't know. That's the type of conversation I hate when it comes to basketball. We get so fixated on where these guys play instead of highlighting how they played and what they've done for their team and how they could carry them. It's always just this narrative is, let's get him to LA. Let's get him to New York. Let's get him to Miami. Like, it's stupid. And I feel like basketball journalism is actually getting a lot better about it, but there's still a few people that are like the minorities, but they're still really loud and people get that shit.
I mean, Pat Bev was talking about it on his podcast, saying that like Anthony Edwards needs to play in LA because he'll get way more national coverage. He'll make way more money playing in an LA market than he went a Minnesota market. And to your point, it kind of seems like Minnesota has had some great players, come in and out of their organization. Kevin Garnett is the first one that comes to mind. But he eventually left because he couldn't win. They make a big splash for Rudy Gobert last summer. They drafted Karl Anthony Towns as a number 1 overall pick. Now they have Anthony Edwards. I think Anthony Edwards is just such a premier talent that these media members want it to be more convenient for them because they don't want to travel all the way to Minnesota.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to.
To me, like, that's the way I look at it. It's like if Cade Cunningham becomes a top 10 player, those narratives would say, got to get Cade to Dallas because he's from Dallas,
Yeah.
You got to get Cade to the Heat. Got to get Cade to LA. It's just these media members, they want it to be more convenient for them, and it'd be easier for them to make money, whether they're, writing articles or they have a podcast like us. It puts money in their pockets when you have a premier talent like that.
Well, also, I mean, like, let's be honest, traveling to LA or Miami or New York, they're more fun places to travel to than like a Minnesota or, I don't know, Sacramento. They're great cities, but that's just how. And for me, like, I feel like you can be a superstar in basketball and you don't have to play in a large market. You can just play as long as you're good. People are going to watch you play. The people are going to tune in. If you start winning, if you start putting up crazy numbers, if you become a multiple-time All-Star, like, I never turned off a Minnesota Timberwolves game when Kevin Garnett was playing because he played in Minnesota. Like, when I was younger, I never thought that. Like, when I watched Chris Webber in Sacramento, he was just a great player to watch. Like, I'd never cared what city they played in. I just wanted to watch good basketball, and that was it. So, I mean, I don't know. I just hate the narrative, and I know it's coming for Cade Cunningham, and it's gonna suck when other teams and other writers start talking about Cade and him playing for another team, because I think sometimes that can have influence on a player's decision of where they want to play.
I think Cade has a good circle and surroundings. Like,
yeah,
time to time we will see Ashton in our chat watching live.
That's true.
And I think Ashton, he loves the city. Like, Cade has some family up here, like in the Ohio, Detroit area. I think they like the city of Detroit because it's low key, but he's going to get his respect this year. And I'm not really too worried about him because he seems like a pretty loyal guy. He doesn't seem like one of those guys that is going to like host My Next Chapter shit on Sports Center. Doesn't seem like he pulled a LeBron or anything like that, but he seems like a really loyal guy. Like, there's other guys in the league that'd be like, yeah, he's probably he's gonna dip.
Yeah, maybe we'll see what happens. Let's move on to news though. I want to talk about this one because I felt like this top 10 list we're about to talk about was pretty spectacular. I don't know if you read the whole article, but Yahoo came up with their top 10 executives in the NBA. And the criteria is kind of crazy. So the criteria for this list was they looked at 3 elements of a GM: drafting, trading, and signing free agents. And then they gave the GMs kind of like baseball scores, I guess. So they had home run was a bona fide all-star. And then they put 3B, which I'm assuming is like a triple. That's a top flight performer. A double, a front end rotation player. A base hit is other noteworthy contributors. BB, I don't know what the hell that is. Lateral inconclusive moves. And then a strike is diminished returns. And I think it's pretty cool to see Weaver made a list like this, especially with other great basketball executives. But does he really feel like he's the 7th best GM in the league to you?
I gotta pull this list back up because I do remember seeing this and I was like, because I posted it on Facebook, and I'm not saying like people on Facebook are toxic by any means, but Pistons Facebook can be pretty toxic. If you do look at the top 10 list, obviously you have Danny Ainge number 1,
yep.
Masai Ujiri number 2, Brian Wright 3, James Jones 4, Kevin Pritchard 5, Pat Riley 6, which I was kind of surprised by. Yeah, Troy Weaver 7, Colby Altman 8, Brad Stevens 9, and Zach Kleinman 10. I was happy that he was a top 10 GM or an executive in the NBA, but I think one thing all of these GMs have in common is playoff success in their tenure. Troy doesn't have it yet, but I could understand why someone believes that he's a top 10 GM, because you have to understand, look what he took over and look what he has turned it into in a short amount of time. This is the second offseason that we've had cap space to spend, and we've been using it very wisely. And next summer we'll have even, I think, approximately $38 million going into next summer. I think he's done a really good job of clearing the cap. He's done a really good job of getting high draft picks, and he's done a good job of not overspending for a free agent. So that's where I could kind of talk myself into him being a number 7th executive in the NBA. But like, I mean, you got guys like Pat Riley above you at 6. James Jones, who's done a phenomenal job in Phoenix, turning that around. Danny Ainge, what he's doing in Utah, he's doing the same thing he did in Boston as he did in Utah. Seems like he's got like 50 draft picks. I was really surprised, though. I'll let you get to this. No Sam Presti.
I was just about to say that. No Sam Presti. Blew my mind. I don't get that. Why did they not have Sam Presti on the list? He has done a phenomenal job. So there was this article written by LibertyBallers.com. It's my first time ever reading them, and this is what they say about Troy Weaver. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll read a couple. I'll read like a sentence or two. Said Troy Weaver 7th in Detroit is comically high. Killian Hayes hasn't returned value. Cade Cunningham may simply not be the top player in the draft class. Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren are talented. Asar Thompson is a tantalizing prospect. Just throw his name with Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren and say they're talented. I don't know why you got to use different words. There's real potential in Detroit, but their full rebuild, stacking very high lottery picks and multiple consecutive losing season, which is textbook Tank 101, could also wind up looking more like a John Wall, Bradley Beal Wizards rebuild than a Golden State Warriors. I hate that. I don't even know who this writer is. I wish I did just so I could call out his name, but I don't even want to give him the credit like that. I mean, I think if you look back just what the Pistons were doing just a couple seasons ago, what their roster was to what it is right now, you wouldn't write anything like this. You would say Troy Weaver has done a great job at rebuilding this roster, considering the fact the best player on the team, Andre Drummond, got you Brandon Knight and John Henson and I think a second-round pick. And probably Troy's biggest blunder as the GM of the Detroit Pistons was trading fan favorite Bruce Brown for Musa, who didn't do any. I think it was Musa that he traded him for, and who hasn't done anything. Will probably never play in the NBA again. That's the worst move he's made as a GM. And all you're talking about is like the what ifs because these guys are in their second and third year in the NBA. Stupid. I'm glad Troy Weaver's number 7. I would have been happy with him at 8, 9, or 10. I think he's a top 10 GM in the NBA. I think Sam Presti should have been on the list. And that would have been it. I think that I agree with some of these other names on here too, but I think Pat Riley, he should probably be number 1 just for finding all those undrafted prospects, but also putting an organization around them where they can grow as players and live up to the potential nobody else saw. You should be number 1. Danny Ainge should be number 2. But Sam Presti, in my opinion, should be number 3. He hasn't won a championship yet, but how he built the original Big 3 in Oklahoma City, doing it his way, and then the talented players he has on that roster right now with all the draft capital, that's a top 3 GM in my opinion. And then, that incredible Shai Gilgeous-Alexander trade, that's probably one of the greatest trades I've ever seen. And he can't even crack the top 10. I don't agree. I think it's kind of cool how Yahoo put it together, the criteria of doing it like the baseball thing. That was pretty cool, and I'm glad they rated all of it. But I just think this list it could be better. That's what I'll say. It could be better.
Yeah, I do want to give Ben Foe a shout out because he had asked, is Monte McNair on this list from the Sacramento Kings? And he's not.
No, he's not.
I would argue he's right up there with James Jones in terms of turning a team around since he's been there. Trading Tyrese Halliburton, who was a lottery pick, for arguably one of the better power forwards in the game of basketball, and Domantas Sabonis right now. To me, that's an A-plus move, and that's a top executive move, in my opinion. They built a powerhouse in the Western Conference. They hired Mike Brown. They got JaVale McGee, I believe, a couple of days ago. They're a team that's going to probably have another deep Western Conference run this year. I would have Monte McNair on this list. I would feel more comfortable with Troy Weaver being a little bit towards the bottom, like around 9 and 10. And I would like to add a Monte McNair. And I'd also like to add a Sam Presti because I feel like what Sam Presti has done, he has the most draft picks out of any team for the Oklahoma City Thunder right now. He got value for Russell Westbrook, James Harden. He got value for Paul George. Like you said, that SGA trade was insane. The pick swaps that they can do with the Clippers, if you just kind of look at all the pick swaps that they have and the draft capital coming in, it's absolutely madness. It feels like a 2K trade. But to have him out of the top 10 for me, I think this is where the list isn't credible anymore. Having 2 of those guys off the list, I just I'm happy Troy made it, but in the same breath, it's just like, yeah, Troy was probably around like that 10-9 range for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think we get kind of like because we're Pistons fans, we see it at the forefront. I think the job he's done rebuilding this roster has been masterful. I mean, I think there's plenty of GMs that you could probably brought in a Sam Presti, and I don't know if they would have made every decision Troy Weaver would have made, but they'd have you in a good spot. I don't know. It's hard for me to argue with Troy Weaver. I mean, I think John Horst should be on this list, and maybe even Calvin Booth too, because Calvin Booth, I mean, those two GMs, they built championship teams around their guys. I mean, John Horst, he drafted Giannis, traded for Chris Middleton when he was just an afterthought in Detroit, brought in Drew Holiday. He's not the best at drafting, but he built a championship team, and Calvin Booth, I thought he's done a good job in Denver. I don't know. I don't think he drafted the Joker, but I mean, to bring in Bruce Brown and to help him find a role, that's pretty good. Christian Braun, it looks like, or Brown, whatever you want to call him. He seems like he's a good player. I don't know. There's so many guys you could just throw on this list. I don't know everything everybody has done, but I feel like James Jones could be a lot lower too, because he inherited Devin Booker and Mikal Bridges. I don't even know if he drafted Cam Johnson. Now, he was in the trade to bring in Chris Paul, but I mean, Chris Paul's no longer there. And he built a team that got to the NBA Finals. I just feel like there are other GMs that are worthy of being higher. Yeah, I think the list could really be reworked.
Yeah. To answer your question, James Jones didn't draft. I can't think of the player you just said.
Cam Johnson.
No, that was actually Jeff Bauer, former Piston GM that drafted Luke Kennard over Donovan Mitchell. That'll open some wounds. But he drafted Cam Johnson. He drafted Mikal Bridges. Makes you think, is he good at drafting? But that core was kind of already built. To your point, he was a big reason why Phoenix did get Chris Paul. Yeah. And how they traded him to the Warriors. They get KD. They get, well, that was more of an Ishbia thing. They trade half their core and their bench to get Kevin Durant. And they got Bradley Beal this summer. Like, it's just a super team, which is just, when I look at that team on paper, I'm just like, how? Why?
Do you think if you had the time, because I know you're busy, that if you were to put together a list like this, it could be better than
if I did make a list, I could tell you Troy Weaver wouldn't crack the top 10.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking about that as you were talking. I started thinking more. I'm like, is Troy Weaver really a top 10 GM right now in the NBA? I mean, we haven't had a winning season yet under him. He did. I mean, like, I already made the point that he brought in some great talent. He rebuilt that roster, and I think it was a masterful job of what he's done. But top 10? I don't know. I think I'm changing my mind on it. I think if you put him in the top 10, I think there's definitely an argument to be made for him belonging in the top 10. I just think with all the other guys that weren't placed on this list, I wouldn't be disappointed if they redid it and Troy Weaver was left out of the top 10.
Yeah, it's not that I don't think he's a good GM. I just think as of right now, he wouldn't be in my top 10. I think he would be on the outside looking in. He'd probably be like around 13, 14, probably around there. Not to say he's not a good GM. I think he is a good GM, and what he's built this team with limited cap space. Because you have to remember he had Blake Griffin on the books. I think Andre Drummond was already gone by the time he did take the job, but still had Blake Griffin. Didn't know what he was going to do there, and he's done a lot of gymnastics cap space wise to get the most out of the players that he's had. Like, trading Luke Kennard, saying, no, I'm not giving you a max contract, and you get Steve Bay, and that turned into James Wiseman. So I think he's done a really good job.
Before we move on, rank those three players: Sadiq Bey, Luke Kennard, James Wiseman. How would you rank those three players?
Okay, guys, we're going to talk about 2K ratings next.
Yeah.
I'm not going down that rabbit hole with you right now.
It's all good. It's all good.
We're just not doing it. So I know that there are some gamers on here, and 2K ratings actually got leaked for the Detroit Pistons. And I know there are some 2K junkies. I don't know if Lance still plays. The last 2K game I bought was last year, and I don't have a PS5, and just like a PSA, Like if you do not have a PS5, don't buy 2K for a PS4 or an Xbox because it looks like PS2 version because the graphics are so shitty and they just don't
Is
give
that
a
what you
fuck.
had posted on Twitter?
What's that?
Were those graphics you posted on Twitter just recently? I don't know who that was. That was not Marvin Bagley.
That was from an account that does like 2K stuff, but I think that's for like new generation. That's for like PS5 and shit. But it didn't look like Marvin Bagley. But we can talk about these 2K ratings because I know there are some 2K junkies out there that are Pistons fans, and I'm sure they'd love to know what Cade's rated, what Bojan's rated, and the rest.
Yeah, Cade was what, 84, and I think I'm going to do this from memory. You tell me if I'm wrong. Cade was 84. Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren was 79. Bojan was 80. Asar was 76. And then Jaden Ivey, I want to say he was like 78.
Okay, so the starting five for the Pistons. Cade Cunningham was 84. You got that right.
I got that right.
Jaden Ivey was rated an 80 at shooting guard.
Damn.
Okay.
I got that one
Asar
wrong.
Thompson was 76 at small forward. Bojan Bogdanovic was rated 82 at power forward.
82.
Jalen Duren was rated a 79 at center.
Are you happy with the ratings? You think
I have a problem that Victor Wembanyama and Cade Cunningham are both 84s.
What would you have liked Cade Cunningham to be? What would you rather change? Do you think Cade is fair at an 84 and Victor Wembanyama is unfair at an 84? Like, what do you think is more fair between those two players and their 84 rating?
I think Cade's at least an 86. And
Okay.
I think because I was looking back. I mean, I think the highest rated rookie ever in 2K was Kenyon Martin. He was like
really?
close to 90, like in some 2K games. So I was on Twitter, like really deep on Twitter, went down a rabbit hole, and someone's like, "Yeah, Kenyon Martin was the highest rated rookie in 2K." But I just remember when I was a kid and LeBron wasn't that high. LeBron was not no 84. I think he was like in the mid 70s as a rookie, and I just think the way 2K rates rookies now, it's just I don't understand it. How can you be like at 84 and you haven't even played 1 minute of basketball yet?
Yeah, I always thought like 84 was kind of the cutoff for top rookies. Like I thought LeBron James was like, I thought he was, for some reason I thought he was like 82 or 84 coming into 2K, and I thought Carmelo Anthony was like 81. I might be thinking of like NBA Live ratings though, because I know I had both games when I was growing up, especially for that draft class. I think 84 is it's not really a sexy number for any player. I think 84 though should be the cap though for rookies. I don't think, like, if you're truly like a special once in a generation type player, 84 should be the max. And I think for a player like Cade, I don't know. I think 84 is kind of fair for him though right now, because even though it's not like a great number, I don't know. I mean, he only played 12 games. You know what I mean? He didn't show a lot in 12 games. But I don't know, 84. I mean, so you said 86. 86 would have been all right though too.
Yeah, like 85, 86. I just have a problem with just Victor being rated 84. That's just my thing with it. It's just like I think if you're a rookie, the highest you should be rated is 80. I think that should be the cutoff. When you start getting into, over 80, this kind of tells me like you're already a star player. Like 85, you're considered a star player.
Yeah, I always thought like 86 was like you're an all-star.
Yeah.
For some reason. But I haven't played 2K in a while. The last one I've ever owned was 2K21. That's the last one I own. And dude, it seems like years. I just feel like I don't know if I'll ever pick up a 2K game again, to be honest. Like, if someone bought it for me, I would play it, but the days of me going to the store with my friends at midnight to get it, long gone, way in the past.
Yeah, like that was me with Madden about 15 years ago.
Yep, same. Madden and 2K were the two games I would go to the store with. go to the store with my friends at midnight and buy them. I don't know. 84 for Cade. Again, that seems kind of fair. And I believe he's the highest rated Piston, right? There's nobody like on the bench that's rated higher than him or anything.
No. But I thought Duran could have been at least an 80 too. I mean, he's a 79, but
that just seems kind of like a slap in the face to Pistons fans, though. Like, we can't have 4 guys 80 or higher in the starting lineup. We got to have one guy at 79. And it's probably like his stamina or like his athleticism just needs to be bumped up like 2 points and he'll be an 80. I don't know.
I don't know. Like I said, I don't really buy 2K anymore. Like I said, I used to buy it for my PC because it was more convenient. But even buying 2K for your computer, it's pretty bad. If you don't have a new generation like system, like a console, don't even buy it. You're just wasting your money.
So, did you agree with the starting lineup they put on for the Pistons, or did you think that they would go in a different direction?
I think they're going in a different direction.
Because you're not really a SAR day one starter guy.
No, I'm not.
Yeah. So,
and it has nothing to do with him.
Yeah. I don't know. Go on. My bad. I keep over talking.
It's all good. It's just I don't think Bojan at the 4 is a good idea.
Well, you're gonna have to watch a lot of it this year, my friend.
It's just there's no rebounding in the defense. It's just like, yeah, that lineup will get obliterated.
Yeah, no, they're expecting Duran to be able to fly over the floor and be a defensive player of the year candidate. Isn't it crazy though that Bojan, like no matter what lineup he's probably the weakest defender, but that out of like the past few years, do you think that's the best Detroit Pistons starting lineup we've had? Even though we haven't even seen it on the floor together, but like just looking at those names, are you like
on paper?
Yeah, on paper.
I would argue when we had like Derrick Rose and Blake Griffin.
That was a good one.
To me, like on paper, that would probably be a better one of recent memory. But I think potential-wise, having 4 out of basically the 4 guys that you have drafted really high in your starting lineup, to me, potentially, that would be a good starting lineup on paper because they've all been drafted high. They're all high lottery picks. And they're your future. So I think on paper it looks good. I just don't know if it would work just because of the defensive liability of Bojan at the 4. And I don't know how the rebounding would be with him at the 4. I don't know, if Duran can just like go into we're going to be talking about this guy next, go into his Andre Drummond mode where he's just grabbing 12, 15 rebounds a game.
Okay, I got 2 questions for you before we move on. Where do you think Cade's rating is at the end of the season?
Okay.
And where do you think right now Isaiah Stewart is rated?
Okay, so for Cade, I think he'll be up to 87 by the end of the year.
Just 3 points? That's it?
Yeah, 87, 88, around there. And for Isaiah Stewart, I could see him being an 80 if that 3-point shot starts to fall.
No, I'm saying right now, do you think Isaiah Stewart is an 80 or do you think he's in the 70s?
Oh, I don't have the full roster in front of me, but I would assume he's probably like at least a 76 or 77.
That's what I was thinking too. Those were the exact numbers I was thinking for Isaiah Stewart. I'm like, there's no way. I don't even think 77 is fair for Isaiah Stewart. I think he could be like an 80 already, just the way he is, even without the 3-point shot. And that'd be funny to have him coming off the bench in 2K as an 80. But to answer my question, I think Cade will be like an 89 by the end of the year.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm just praying for a healthy season, man.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair too. All right, let's move on and talk about Andre Drummond and his chances to make the freaking Hall of Fame.
That was something.
Andre Drummond, what was that?
So that was something.
Yeah, listen, Andre Drummond, fantastic player when he was in Detroit. Unfortunately, he played a role he wasn't suited for, and that was franchise player. He did not have the skills. I remember watching him playing thinking, all right, this guy has a ton of talent, but he's still missing something to be the number one, the franchise guy for the Detroit Pistons. Like, this guy needs to do something offensively, not even offensively. That's not even what I was thinking at the time. I used to think like if this guy could figure it out defensively and be a true anchor on that side of the ball, combined with his rebounding, he'd be a great player. We'd have a truly special player, but he never did that. He did get some good blocks, and I think he's the last player to have over 100 blocks and 100 steals and 1,000 rebounds in one season. That's great. It just didn't translate to a lot of wins. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. I don't even think he's close to being a Hall of Famer. But what about you, Anthony?
So when I heard him talk about this, because there was some context, I don't think I had the video downloaded or anything, but he was basically saying that he's the best rebounder of all time.
Yeah.
Which I don't agree with. I don't. I don't even think he's the best Pistons rebounder of all time. I think that title belongs to Dennis Rodman. Even though he has a higher Ben Wallace too. Even though he has a higher rebound percentage in terms of the rebounds he's grabbed, people don't talk about in his Detroit days. I bet you at least 5% of those rebounds he grabbed were from his own misses.
Yeah.
He's a great rebounder, don't get me wrong, but to say you're the best rebounder of all time, that's where I kind of have a problem with it. I don't think he's the best rebounder of all time. I think he's top 5. I'll give him that. But I think Dennis Rodman was a better rebounder, in my opinion.
Yeah, dude, Dennis Rodman, Moses Malone. I'm not even going to say Wilt Chamberlain just because I want to talk about just players that were in more of a modern era. I mean, I even think a guy like Reggie Evans, who was undrafted out of Iowa, he was an incredible rebounder for being only 6'8". I think he had like a 10 couple. He wasn't even a starter. He was a minimal player, playing like 23 minutes a game, grabbing like 10 boards a game for a couple seasons or right around there. Like Andre Drummond, fantastic. I do not think he is the greatest in any one category. I think he was a phenomenal rebounder. I agree with you. I think a good percentage of his rebounds were just him collecting his own misses because he was right at the rim. He is a good offensive rebounder, though. I'll give him that. Like, I mean, if you wanted to put him up there and say, like, he's like one of the top 3 offensive rebounders of all time, I'd be like, yeah, dude, I mean, there's something to be said about being able to go up there and grab your own miss. There's something to be said about that. That's a real skill.
Yeah.
But overall, like Dennis Rodman, Ben Wallace, Moses Malone, I mean, I know I'm kind of joking saying Reggie Evans, but he was a damn good rebounder. So was Paul Millsap. He was a damn good rebounder. He was just undersized and started playing on the perimeter a little too much. I don't know. There's some guys that have real nose for the ball. And I'm not saying Andre Drummond didn't, but I just remember him, like you're saying, collecting a lot of his own misses and really kind of disrupting plays and defensive assignments just to go get a rebound, which is cool to have a nose for it. But I don't know. I just felt like his rebounding was stat padding to a degree.
Yeah, I mean, I remember a story of Reggie Jackson when he was here saying that he went to grab a rebound and Drummond punched him in the face at practice for grabbing a rebound.
That's crazy.
Yeah, he's just like, I'll rebound the ball. Like, don't worry about it. I think he's a great rebounder, and I did enjoy his time here in Detroit. I just thought the way they used him didn't make a whole lot of sense being like that, the Dwight Howard light, because that wasn't his game. I don't think he'll get into the Hall of Fame just based off of his rebounding numbers. And if he were to go into the Hall of Fame, it would probably be as a member of the Detroit Pistons. And if you look at the centers that have played for this franchise, you have a lot of centers that, in my opinion, I think would be ahead of him. And that's why I don't think he'll get a Hall of Fame nod. Like, you have Dennis Rodman, who's in the Hall. Ben Wallace, most recently, is in the Hall. I want to say, is Bill Lanier in the Hall?
No, he's not. Oh, Bill Lanier? Bill Laimbeer?
Bob Lanier. I don't know.
Lanier's in the Hall of Fame, but Bill Laimbeer is not.
Yeah, Bob Lanier. I mean, like, those are 3 all-time great centers. I don't know why I called them Bill Lanier. Bob Lanier. My apologies that I messed that up. But I just can't see him making the Hall as a member of the Detroit Pistons because ever since he's been traded, he's been a journeyman. Like, he hasn't really been on a team for that long.
It's his resume, though. He has 2 All-Star appearances, 1 All-NBA. I think 3rd team is what he made. He has 4 rebounding titles, but that's not enough. Like, he hasn't won a championship. He wasn't a Defensive Player of the Year award winner. He's just a good rebounder. That's it. He's not a franchise player, and he's not even like a franchise role player, which you would think that he would change his game just slightly to last longer on these teams, like the Chicago Bulls, like the Cleveland Cavaliers, to name a couple. And he just hasn't done it, man. Like, or even the Lakers, like they need a big, him and Anthony Davis together. Like, you would not be able to rebound against that team if he could just figure it out. Andre Drummond, I don't even know if he has Hall of Fame talent, but he had Hall of Fame flashes when he played for Detroit, but he's not a Hall of Fame player.
I think what Aaron S. just said just kind of validates what we were saying. And he said, is Joe Harris a Hall of Famer for having one of the best 3-point percentages of all time? Of course not.
Yep.
It's a good player. Like, we're not slandering Andre Drummond by any means on this podcast. Great player, but you're not going to get in the Hall for just rebounding the basketball. You're just not. I mean, you look at some of the bigs that have been inducted into the Hall. They had an all-around game, whether they were protecting the rim, winning Defensive Player of the Years, or they had a two-way game. And Drummond just is a great rebounder.
I think you could make the Hall of Fame as just a great rebounder, but it would have to contribute to winning and overall team success. And that's not something he did. Like, if Andre Drummond could get a rebound and just make a great outlet pass to like Reggie Jackson or Kentavious Caldwell-Pope streaking down the floor, we'd be like, damn, like his rebounding, it really turns some games, because you can have two guys leak out and start running down the floor. That's how good of a rebounder he is. And as soon as he does it, he looks up and eyes down the floor, and he's just looking to throw it out, make a great outlet pass. And you just didn't get that from Andre Drummond. It was just, he was a stat stuffer on bad teams. That's all he was. And I don't know.
I won't say stat stuffer, but I just remember vividly of, he'd be like George Blaha and Greg Kelser. Andre Drummond's got 10 rebounds in the first quarter, and like there are highlights of him 25. Like getting like 3 or 4 offensive rebounds off of like a tip in that he like hooked. A hook shot that he missed. I was just like, dude, like, come on, stop.
Yeah, he will be remembered. I think people will look back at his stats and say, damn, how is he only a 2-time All-Star, especially with his time in Detroit. But then if you like go deeper into the rabbit hole and you watch those games, you'll be like, okay, now I understand why he wasn't a more than a 2-time All-Star. But Andre Drummond, we loved you in Detroit. You're just not a Hall of Famer. You will be, as long as me and Anthony are alive, people will remember Andre Drummond.
Oh, there's a huge Drummond flock out there. I don't think they need us.
Yeah, well, I said it anyways. Let's talk about this next topic, because I love talking about stuff like this. Who will have a bigger jump? Who will take a bigger jump next year? Isaiah Stewart or my man Isaiah Livers? I think this is I like topics like this because you get to make an educated guess, and you can look really, really smart if you get it right. But I'm going to turn it over to you first. Who do you think takes a bigger leap for the Pistons next year?
You're a puss. Come on.
Okay, you want me to go? I'll do it. I'll go.
Yeah, you're like, hey, if I get it right, then I sound smart. But you take the heat first and sound like a dumbass. So if you get it wrong, I don't feel so bad.
Well, let's discuss this first. What do players have to do to take a bigger leap? Like, are we looking at just statistics? Are we looking at them adding an extra steal? Or, I mean, like playing, you know what I'm saying? Is it just statistics for us that we're talking about? Because if it's just stats, I would pick Isaiah Stewart, because I think that 3-point shot is real. And I think, because I think he could be like in the teens for scoring this year if the 3-point shot is real. But I do also, in that same breath, I also think that Isaiah Stewart is closer to his ceiling as a player, as a high energy, high motor, going to come in, get you a few rebounds, get you a few buckets, sweat profusely on defense. That's what I think he's going to do. So I'm going to say, since I said all that, I'm actually going to take Isaiah Livers. Like, it should be no surprise. I think Isaiah Livers can take will take a bigger leap than Isaiah Stewart next year. And I'm not going to look at the stats because he's not much of a scorer, but as a defensive player, as a communicator, and as a connector, that's going to be super huge. And as long as he's healthy, Isaiah Livers will take the bigger leap next year.
So I don't want to break your heart, but there's a good chance that Joe Harris is above Isaiah Livers in the rotation.
Yeah, at the 3 spot. I get it.
No, I mean, like, there's a chance Isaiah Livers doesn't get, like, consistent playing time.
Maybe.
Especially if you have all the bigs on the bench.
We're going to get into that in a second. And I do not. I think Isaiah Livers gets minutes over the bigs. You already heard you already know. I think Isaiah Stewart comes off the bench and he's the backup 5 and he'll get some minutes at the 4. But I think the backup 4 spot, a majority of those minutes are Isaiah Livers to lose this upcoming season. There may not be a lot of minutes, but there's going to be minutes for him at that 4 spot.
The more I think about it, they're probably going to use Harris at that 3-4 combo because that's what he did in Brooklyn. Yeah. But to answer your question, which Isaiah is going to take a bigger leap this season, I think it's really obvious who is going to take the bigger leap, and that is going to be Isaiah Stewart. And the reason why Isaiah Stewart has the potential to take a bigger leap than Isaiah Livers is playing time, and he's going to be in the starting lineup. He is going to be your starting power forward day one. We're not going to get all cute and throw Bojan at there and get murdered. We're just not doing that. It's going to be Isaiah Stewart. He didn't sign that big contract extension going into effect next season for him to sit on the bench. He just didn't. If his shot is falling, if he's around 33, 35%, he's probably around 12 to 14 points a game. With the great defense, with the energy, with the hustle. I think Isaiah Stewart has the potential to take a bigger leap because of playing time, and he's going to be in the starting lineup. For Isaiah Livers, the guy has to stay healthy. Okay,
yeah, that's the biggest thing.
We know that he's injury prone. We know that he has potential to be a 3-and-D wing. We all know that. It's just the health with him. We haven't seen it so far in his young Piston career. We just haven't. We like the defensive upside. We love the 3-point shot. He's sneaky athletic. He had one of the better dunks last year against Toronto. I love Isaiah Livers, dude. I really do. But I just don't know. I don't know if he's going to be a top 10 player in Monty Williams' rotation. I just don't know. He might go veteran, heavy with a Joe Harris, who has a better track record of shooting the 3-point ball from 40% than Isaiah Livers does. But like I said, there's two sides of the coin. It's, do you want to go with the younger guy that has that upside, or do you want to go with the older veteran that that's going to hit a wide open 3? And I think Monty might lean towards Joe Harris if he's healthy going into training camp over Isaiah Livers with playing time.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this before. I see a 10-man rotation going into the season, and I feel like the bench is going to be Morris, Burks, Harris, Livers, and Isaiah Stewart. Those will be the 5 off the bench for the Pistons. And then eventually, once they make the play-in, it'll go to an 8-man rotation. I just think Isaiah Livers can take a bigger leap. And it's not, we chose these two players because it's not about statistics with them. It's not necessarily about who's going to put up more points. Like, that's not necessarily taking the bigger leap, but who's taking a larger role offensively, who's taking a larger role defensively for the Pistons. And I think Isaiah Livers, he's already a communicator. He likes to talk out there. He knows where guys need to be. He's a fantastic connector. He doesn't care so much about what he puts up in the box score. It's all about the wins. And I think, honestly, Asar is probably the best defensive perimeter, but I think Isaiah Livers is right there. I don't think he'll have the greater impact, but I think Isaiah Livers, with a healthy team and a better roster going into the season, he's not going to be put on an island anymore and be destroyed by guys. He's actually going to have some help. He's going to be able to really showcase his defensive chops, and I think that's why he'll take the bigger leap than Isaiah Stewart. Because, again, I already think Isaiah Stewart is there. I don't think there's a ton of room for improvement for him, because he is kind of limited at the 4 and the 5 spot. And that's why, to take that next leap, it will be the 3-point shot. But I believe it's already there. But I don't think he's going to be shooting in the 40s. I think he'll be shooting around 33, 34%, which is going to help out. But I don't know. I just say Isaiah Livers takes the biggest leap.
Yeah, like I said, we are not surprised. No one on this podcast is surprised that you took Isaiah Livers. We already know. We know.
I know. I got to give my guy some love. Let's talk about these trades that Bleacher Report came up for the Detroit Pistons.
Okay, I think some people will like this because, Pistons fans are salivating when it comes to trades. They're like, oh, okay. Trade? Sign me up.
So the Bleacher Report article, they mentioned three things, the players. They mentioned two players and draft picks. They mentioned Jalen Green and Jalen Johnson. But here's my take on it. Doesn't it seem unrealistic for the Pistons to keep adding young guys to this roster? Where are all the minutes going to come from? Even if you traded Bojan and Alec Burks, there's just not enough minutes. I mean, and I feel like Jalen Green and Jalen Johnson, they're going to be great players in the NBA for years, probably for like a decade. Maybe not great players, but they're going to be players in the NBA. They're going to help if their respective team wins. But it's just, where do they fit in the larger, you can't pay all these guys if they all turn out. I would rather see the Pistons go Cade, Ivy, Asar, Duren, let them play it out for the year, see who the real players are of that core, and then just sprinkle in some veterans over the next couple of years to really help them win some games. Okay. I love the idea of adding young guys to a roster, but there comes a point where your team is just too young and you can't pay all these people. So I would rather stick with a Burks and a Bojan for one more year, let them ball out, help the young guys learn to win, and then see what you can do next offseason.
Okay. Well, for context, for people that don't know who's actually on the screen, we have Josh Green from the Dallas Mavericks, which Rick Carlisle didn't want to draft him. He wanted Sadiq Bey. Lost his job over it. And we also have Jalen Johnson, who went to Duke, who plays for the Hawks. Now, why I found this interesting from Bleacher Report, they said draft picks, Josh Green and Jalen Johnson, is I think Jalen Johnson, to me, is very interesting because they traded away John Collins at that power forward position.
Yep.
And Jalen Johnson outperformed him all year. You can look at the numbers. You can look at the box score. You can go on StatMuse. The reason why they wanted to part with John Collins is because this guy is just a caliber power forward that can start next to Trae Young and Clint Capella. He's a great player. Now, to your point, Lance, when do you get to the point where you say we have enough young guys, let's go compete? I think the Pistons still want to acquire young talent because they haven't really, got out of a first round yet. I think you can do both. I think you can get older guys like a Bojan and a Burks, and you can also have young talent on the come up. I think both of these guys, to me, I would tier them differently than I would a guy like a James Wiseman, for example, because I think these guys can contribute to winning basketball day one. I think Josh Green, once he got more playing time under Jason Kidd, he was playing meaningful minutes down the stretch. Same with Jalen Johnson. I think both of these guys are very interesting players. I just question if the Mavericks or the Hawks would be willing to trade a young core piece like this because they're contributing to their team right now at a very high level. I love that Bleacher Report did mention these two guys because these are two guys that are really great basketball players. But I think the Pistons, they're always going to be in the market for younger talent until they get out of that first round or until they, put a 40, 50 win season together. I think you always need young talent because if you have a team full of veterans, let's use the Lakers, for example, last season, that doesn't always end well because, older players get hurt. They need those days off and you need some fresh legs from under you. I think trading for guys like this really wouldn't hurt the Pistons. If anything, it would probably help them out more.
I'm just trying to see something. I'm trying to pull up the Pistons roster real quick because my thing is, it's how many guys are under the age of 25? You have Marvin Bagley, you have Marcus Sasser, Cade Cunningham, Buddy Boeheim.
You just mentioned Buddy Boeheim. Get out of here with that.
I'm just joking. Jalen Duren, Killian Hayes, Jaden Ivey. Isaiah Livers is now 25. I already said Marcus. Isaiah Stewart, Asar Thompson, and then you want to add in either a Josh Green. Again, like if they all pan out, you cannot pay all of these guys. I feel like it eventually you can eventually develop, like, give this Pistons team like a couple years together and then try to add like a Josh Green or a Jalen Johnson. And I mean, as veterans, not as young players trying to come up, because I feel like it could get you in a situation where you accidentally pay one guy where you can't pay another guy. And now you're like, we're stuck with the lesser guy. That would suck. I don't think Troy Weaver would do that, but I would rather go into the season with this roster than add a Jalen Johnson or a Josh Green. If I had doubts about any of the core, I would be all for it. But I don't have doubts in Cade Cunningham. I don't have doubts in Ivy or Asar or Duren or Isaiah Stewart or Sasser or Livers or Duren. Like, I have no doubts about those guys. Let me just see those guys first before I try to add younger and younger pieces to it, because I just don't know where they fit. And like, are those guys going to take a back seat for their careers this early on to other young guys? Like, you're going to bring him in and Josh Green's like, well, I'm around their age. Yeah, but these guys are a core. We want you to be just a role player. He's not going to take that. That I feel like I don't think any player would. So I don't know. I'm kind of rambling right now, but I just feel like people love to throw young players into trades to the Detroit Pistons because, again, they just don't watch the Detroit Pistons, or they think there's too many question marks on this roster.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you won 17 games last year.
Yeah.
You have talent on the roster, but you don't have like a bona fide like top 10 player on your roster right now. We hope Cade Cunningham can be that, but you have a bunch of guys that it's a bunch of question marks. You don't really know if all these pieces of the puzzle will actually fit. You have to kind of wait and see this season what Monty Williams can do. You don't really know if Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey can coexist in the backcourt. We don't know that yet. We don't know if Jalen Duren could be a franchise center. We're hopeful we can be, but I think he'll be fine. We don't really know if, Isaiah Livers can stay healthy. We don't know what the hell is going to happen with Killian Hayes. There's a lot of question marks. So to your question, why these media websites say, top young guys for the Pistons to trade for, is because there's like hell of a lot of question marks on this team that we just don't have the answers to yet.
But don't you think there would be more question marks on the team if you continue to add young guys instead of just playing the young guys that you have? Because like you were saying, like, yeah, we don't know if Jaden Ivey or Cade Cunningham, but I don't think adding Josh Green or Jalen Johnson is going to make that picture clearer for us. But I mean, in like 2 years, when those guys are at their ceiling and the Pistons are still on the come up, and you're like, yeah, dude, you could probably use like a Jalen Johnson or a Josh Green to help this team out, because we already know what we have. That's my big thing. I feel like if you had too much young talent, you never really get to see how they all work out. But when you have a guy like Burks and a guy like Morris coming off your bench, where they are veterans, where they're already established names, those guys are in a position and they're at a point in their careers where they can take a backseat to the young guys and allow them to develop and, find their own footing in this league.
Yeah, I would say to that is, yes, you have young guys. You should see what's there. I agree with that. But like I said, I don't really think if you traded for Josh Green or Jalen Johnson, it would affect playing time. Like, they're not coming. Like, let's just say Jalen Johnson, for example. He's not going to get more playing time than Isaiah Stewart. He might battle with James Wiseman or Marvin Bagley, but he's not going to be taking away minutes from your starters. Like, both of these guys, to me, when I look at them, they're complementary role players that are younger. They're not guys that are going to threaten playing time from anybody. But I get your point also. You're like, I want to play all these young guys and see what I have. My only thing is, there's a lot of question marks. And like I said, we're going to have to wait and see this year if all these pieces that we did draft can actually coexist together. And I think we just have to be more patient with that. But like I said, I don't hate this article from Bleacher Report. These are two guys that are very under the radar, maybe not a lot of Pistons fans know of. But like I said, I didn't hate the article by any means.
Jalen Johnson broke out for the Hawks this past year, like in the final games. He looked pretty damn good. And Josh Green, he's starting to come into his own for the Dallas Mavericks. But let's talk about this James Edwards article, because I know this is something you and I have talked about a few times before on this podcast. Maybe not quite like James Edwards had said, but can you pull up the quote from James Edwards and read that out loud? I would, but I'm on one.
Yeah,
computer.
for sure. So but before I do read the quote, this is one of James's articles. It was a Q&A article for full context. And this is a quote from James Edwards, the third article from The Athletic. He said, "I wouldn't be surprised if the Pistons traded Marvin Bagley or James Wiseman." He said, "If Detroit looks to move Marvin Bagley or James Wiseman, it's tough to envision a rotation in which both of these guys play when Duren and Isaiah Stewart to be locks in the rotation and starting group. My gut tells me that Wiseman will be the one staying in Detroit if one of them is moved." End quote.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have kind of talked about this before, where I don't see how both of them, because we've kind of joked saying like the Spider-Man meme. They're both just big guys with they use their left hand. That's really where it comes from. But it's kind of redundant to have two big guys that aren't known for their defense. They kind of get tunnel vision offensively. Neither of them really have much range to their jumpers. Like, they might flash it here and there, but they're more of like your classic back to the basket bigs. Or they might have a face-up game, but it's within inside 15 feet. In today's NBA, you don't really need too many guys like that on the team. So it makes sense that James is talking about this. And I think it even makes more sense because Marvin Bagley, like, he's 24. He's closer to his ceiling than James Wiseman is, just because he's older and he's been in the NBA. You kind of already know what he's going to bring to a team. I don't think either of these guys would be easy to trade, but I think because Marvin Bagley is more established as a player, he would be the easier one of the two to actually package in a trade. I think it'd be difficult for either of them, but I think Marvin Bagley, just because he's more established and people know who he is and what his game is, he'd be easier to trade than James Wiseman. But also, I can see why Troy Weaver would want to hold on to James Wiseman, because there's still so much untapped potential for that guy.
Yeah, like, when I was reading this article, I read a lot of athletic articles, and I was like, why would you put that in there? Like, I'm reading the tea leaves to this article, and it's just like he's kind of hinting, like, don't be surprised if there is a trade, it could be Bagley, it could be Wiseman. Yeah. But to your point, I think if it came down to keeping a Marvin Bagley or a James Wiseman, I think Troy Weaver would be more inclined to keep Wiseman, just for the fact that he was extremely high on Wiseman coming out of the draft. Yeah. They're both high former lottery picks, but there's so much there with Wiseman. I believe that the Pistons organization is probably thinking, like, let's just get him more reps. There may be something there with him that we just haven't untapped, and there could be potential there. Not to say that Bagley does not have that same type of potential. I think Bagley right now has a deeper bag offensively in the post, and I think there's value there.
Yeah.
But it's a logjam in the front court. To James's point, like, you have Jalen Duren, you have Isaiah Stewart, and you have Wiseman and Bagley. You don't really need four bigs on deck. Who's to say that Monty Williams wants to play a two big lineup? Yep. Who's to say he could just be traditional and just use one big, in the lineup? Maybe he doesn't want to have two bigs out there just crash in the paint. He may just want to be more traditional and just have one center out there, maybe a Bojan, or to your point, maybe a Sarr and Bojan are out there in the starting lineup together. Who knows? But I wouldn't be surprised if they did try to move on from Bagley. Not to say he's not a great player, because he is. Anytime you can have a player like him off your bench, it's a luxury to me. But I found it very interesting that James put that in his article. And he kind of hinted that, like, if it came down to a Bagley or a Wiseman, they probably keep Wiseman over Bagley.
I think, like, what do you think Marvin Bagley would have to do this year to really take that, not for you to be like, okay, I'd rather have him than James Wiseman?
I think he would have to come out like he did when he came back from injury when they traded for Wiseman.
With all that energy, yeah, 100%.
All that energy, and he's putting up 20 and 15.
Yeah.
Like, that's the type of effort they probably want out of him, like when they traded for him, what they envision. And I don't know if Bagley can consistently do that all year. I don't know if he's capable of, putting up, 15 and 10 a night. But I think he has the potential, and he has the body to do it. I think that he has all the potential in the world. It's just up to him if he wants to, put in that effort night in and night out. But I would say that's the type of effort he would probably have to have, but he might not even get a chance to show that. They might just trade him before opening night. Like, that's the thing.
That's a real possibility. I think if they're both on the team, though, if he could come out with the energy that he did when he came back from injury, I think that's a great point. I think if he could show some extended range and just show some more effort defensively, you don't got to be a lockdown guy. Like, I don't need you to be, you don't need to be a defensive player of the year candidate. That would be great, but let's be realistic. But if you could just hold your own defensively where you're not getting cooked on a nightly basis, then that's the only way. Like, because James Wiseman, to me, I agree with you. I think Marvin Bagley's the better player right now, but there's just so much untapped potential for James Wiseman. Like, you still don't know what that guy can be as a player. So yeah, he would be my pick. But if Marvin Bagley could just come out and show some extended range, play with a little bit more effort defensively, and show a little bit more effort on the glass, he'd be my pick. But I just don't think we're going to get that from him.
Yeah, it's such a weird time of the year because basketball does start next month.
Yep.
Which, just saying that, I get excited. I can't wait. But it seems like a lot of these beat writers are saying, there may be a trade on the cusp. It may be Killian Hayes. Hey, it might be James Wiseman. It might be Marvin Bagley. We just don't know. We assume there's at least one more trade before opening night. And I don't know, man. It's hard because I like Marvin Bagley a lot. I like what he has to offer off the bench. To have a guy that has an array of post moves like that could score, to me, I like off the bench. I think that's a luxury. But to your point, what you said is he's not the defender that you want him to be, but that's okay. We don't need you locking down guys. We don't need you having like 5 blocks a game. If you did, that'd be nice, but we know that's not your game. I just think it'd be kind of premature to trade him just because to me, it's like James Wiseman is the mystery box and maybe Marvin Bagley's that boat already. I'm using a Family Guy reference right now. And I 100%, you know what I'm talking about? You just don't know. Like, Bagley could, be really steady, and Wiseman could just be this mystery box, and you're like, you never know what he could turn into. We just have to wait and see. But I'd like to keep them both if possible. Like, I would. It just for me, I think I don't think it would be a regret if the Pistons traded him. I don't think he would, have like a revenge tour like Spencer Dinwiddie or anything like that. But I think he's a player that could contribute a lot this year.
See, I envision James Wiseman being a real contributor to the Pistons down the line. Like, maybe not even as a starter, but coming off the bench and just being one of those guys, like kind of like a John Sally, where he knew his role and played it really well and made the playoffs every year of his career. I could see that with James Wiseman. before we get into the Q&A, let's talk about statistics. So every week we choose 2 different players. And we're going to predict their stats for the upcoming seasons. I think I put Jalen Duren down, and I think I put Isaiah Livers down in the prep sheet, but I could be wrong.
You did. You put Isaiah Livers. You know you did.
I'm just making sure.
People know you put Isaiah Livers in.
Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to you for the first time. What do you think Jalen Duren's stats will be this upcoming season?
I am thinking 13 points, 11 rebounds, and a block and a half a game from Jalen Duren.
What do you think he shoots from the field?
I think he'll be like low 60s.
Whoa, okay.
Because I think he's going to get some post touches. I think, like, if we're just talking about like lobs, lobs, his field goal percentage is probably high 70s. But I think, maybe we'll see him shoot from the outside. Maybe we'll see him, shoot some of those middies that we saw a couple last year, and they're like, oh, if there's something there. I think it would be like possibly low 60s if they let him, step out from like that mid range, like 12 to 15 feet out. I think that could be a possible number for him, but if they don't, probably high 70s, because he'll probably just be a lob threat for Cade and Jaden Ivey and those guys. But if they do let him shoot a little bit, it'll probably be like, low 60s, high 50s.
See, I'm thinking like 14 and 10, probably 2 assists. I would say probably about a block and a half per game. That's a good number. But I'm saying, because I think he'll be more than a lob threat, I'm saying like low 50s for the field goal percentage. I'm thinking like 52, 53%, because I think he's going to be in some situations where he's going to be a priority on offense, even with Cade and Ivy on the floor, where they're going to give, like, depending on the matchup. Like, I think we're going to see some of his jumper. I don't think he's just going to be getting touches like 2-3 feet near the rim and he's just asked to dunk it. I think they're going to, this year, even though they're trying to win, there's going to be a lot of growing pains with him offensively, and they're going to allow him to try and do some things. Because why not? I mean, like, try to figure out who he is as a player. If there's more to his offensive game than just dunks or near the rim and just catching lobs, maybe there is more. Maybe he can extend his range during the regular season. Let's see if he can do it during this season, because, I mean, even though they're trying to win, like, there's a chance we're not playing playoff basketball this year. So I say give Jalen Duren the opportunity to really expand his offensive game. But 14-10-2 with 1.5 blocks and around 52-53% from the field is what I think. Now let's move on to my man, Isaiah Livers. What do you think his stats will be for the upcoming year?
So Livers is a little tough.
Yeah.
Because a couple topics ago I told you.
You don't think he's going to play?
I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be a solid guy on the rotation. So with Livers, I think I'll go 9 points.
Okay, that's good.
I think 3 rebounds, maybe an assist a half a game, and 38% from 3.
Woo, so I have 9 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, because I do think he won't be like a primary playmaker, but there's going to be opportunity for him where he probably catches it, pump fake, someone closes out, he drives, then makes a quick pass to Duren in the post or something. But I think he's going to shoot close to 42% from 3 from Isaiah Livers. That's what I think he's going to do. 9 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, probably around a steal a game too. But that 42% from 3, that's coming back like it did in those 19 games his rookie year.
Okay. Like I said, I think I just don't know how much he's going to play, because I don't know if Joe Harris is going to be a guy that's in the rotation night in and night out. Like, he might not play, and he could just be on ice, which I think if that's the case, Pistons fans will be furious. Be like, we traded for a guy that's not going to play. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would be, but I think him and Isaiah Livers will be coming off the bench. How many minutes do you think Isaiah Livers is going to get this year?
I'm assuming that Joe Harris gets playing time, so I'll probably say 12.
Okay, I was thinking like I don't see 28 per game. I could probably see as high as 24, but I think around 18 minutes per game this year. It wouldn't surprise me if that's how many Isaiah Livers is getting. And there'll probably be a couple games where he's well below 18, but there's probably going to be a few games where they're going to ride the hot hand.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just what I was thinking. Do we have any Q&A questions?
We have one that I did save from Jay. I don't know if he's still watching, but this is such a great question. And I think I know the answer to you're like how you would answer this. I don't know how I'm going to answer this because I'm a Piston homer at heart. He said if the Pistons could land the great freak, Giannis Antetokounmpo, or Embiid, would you give up some of the new young core?
I would for Giannis. I would not for Joel Embiid.
Okay.
I mean, I don't even know who I would give up for. I mean, I'm going to be honest here. Giannis is incredible. Like, he's a great player. And him, and like, so I wouldn't give up Cade, though, for him, which seems kind of crazy, but I think Cade really can be like a top 10, top 15 player in the NBA. So I would be, I mean, dude, is it crazy for me to say I'd be willing to give up Jaden Ivey and like Duran for Giannis? Or even throwing a Sar in there?
No, I mean, because he's a top 5 player in the NBA, or top 3, arguably, if you want to get into debates. Like,
he's probably like a top 20 player of all time. Like, it'd be crazy not to have him.
Yeah, I think any rational Pistons fan would trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo.
But would you give up Cade Cunningham for him?
I would if he would commit long term. So funny. We were talking about loyalty and NBA media, right?
Yeah.
Earlier. Like, Giannis won't sign a contract with the Bucks because he doesn't know how the organization is going to be, because, you know, that they're going through a lot of changes right now in the front office, and they just signed his brother. So you got all 3 Antetokounmpo brothers in Milwaukee, and
they did waive him like 12 hours later, though, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like Alex Antetokounmpo gets buckets in the G League, so they're tripping.
Oh, really? He's good? Because I just remember his skills challenge where it looked like he had no footwork whatsoever.
Offensively, he's very gifted. Yeah, I covered a couple of his G League games. The kid's got game for sure.
Really? Okay, check that out.
But to this question, I would trade for Giannis if I was assured that I could sign him to a 5-year deal. If I can't, then no. I'm not doing like a little cute 1-year rental and I win a championship and you pull a Kawhi Leonard and you go with LA. I don't think that would be worth it. So to answer your question, if I had to throw Cade in there, yes, but only if I had assurance that he would sign a 5-year contract. That's the only way I would do it. As for Embiid, you know, arguably the best center in the NBA, MVP this year. You know, you could debate whether him and Jokic are the best center in the NBA. I'm not going to have those debates. You guys can, but I think I would pass it on Embiid. I probably would trade for Giannis if I had to choose between a Giannis or an Embiid.
Yeah, I'm taking Giannis all day. Would you be willing to give up Cade, Duran, Asar, and Ivy for Giannis, though? Like, if that's what it took, if they're like, hey,
that's a lot.
I know, but I mean, like, it is
Giannis, like,
though.
That's 4 years of tanking, brother.
Got you Giannis, though, at 28 years old.
Oh, man. I don't know. I might. It sounds crazy. I might say no. Like,
I would have to keep at least one of those guys.
Yeah.
Even I would give up 3 of them.
Yeah, no, I couldn't do that. Like that was like all the years of suffering that we had to endure to just trade for like this is so hypothetical. I wouldn't do it, no. Just because I think that core could develop into something special. But like I said, Giannis is a great player, but to me that's just crazy talk. Like I couldn't do that. Like even like taking my Piston hat off and trying to be logical, I just couldn't do it. I would have to hang up the phone.
it's just like you're giving up the idea of it because you're going to have to restart with Giannis. Like, yeah, he's going to generate a lot of wins for you, but he alone cannot do it himself. So you would be back pretty much like in a rebuild with Giannis. Like you would be able to get some other players along with him just because it's Giannis and people want to win. But yeah, I don't know if I'd give up all four for him. That might be too much. I do have a question from Cameron, and he's asked if Cade and Jalen were on Team USA's roster, predict their stats with shooting splits, and would Cade be a starter? I think Cade would be a starter based on what I've seen.
Yeah,
just because it feels. I mean, I love Jalen Brunson and Tyrese Halliburton. I think they're phenomenal players, but Team USA, I feel like, really needs a leader and a point guard that can control the pace and set everybody else up. And those guys are going to rack up assists. There's no doubt about it. But Cade has like that Chris Paul, Jason Kidd type of feel to his game where he knows when guys need their shots. He knows how to deliver on that. He knows how to control the pace. He knows when to take over. They don't really have a point guard like that on Team USA. And I think Cade Cunningham would start and be that guy. I mean, I'd have to look up Team USA stats, though, to really predict this. But what are your thoughts on that?
I'll just say they'll start. I'm not going to get into shooting splits.
Okay.
Just because I'll be 100% transparent with everyone listening and you. I haven't watched a single ounce of USA basketball.
Oh, okay.
That's just like, I just don't know. I'm sure, international play or just, World Cup play is a lot different from an NBA game. I'm sure a lot of players out there aren't playing 35 minutes a night. I'm sure it's split, but I don't know. I think they would start if they wanted to, but.
See, I think Cade would probably average around 9 points, 5 assists, and maybe like 2 rebounds. Shooting wise, yeah, so the highest minutes getter for Team USA is Anthony Edwards. He averages 24 minutes per game.
Okay.
But he does shoot 54% from the field. That's crazy. Paolo Banchero, what do you think he shoots from the field?
Like 45?
67%.
Oh, damn.
Mikal Bridges, I'm going to share this one with you. He averages 9, 2, and 1 per game, and he averages 21 minutes per game. He shoots 72% from the field, 41% from 3. That's
not bad.
So his overall field goal percentage is 60%, but his 2-point field goal percentage is 72%.
Okay.
That's crazy. So you're not
All right.
going to give a stat prediction for Cade?
No.
Okay.
I'm not going to put my name out there and say Cade's going to average like 40 or something crazy. But we do have some other Q&A questions that I do want to get to because it seems like Cameron he gets like the honorary questions and Q&A every week.
Yeah. He missed
but he stopped
week.
watching, so I don't know, Cameron. You stopped watching, brother.
I mean, nobody wants to look at us all the time for almost 2 hours. I get it.
I don't know, man. He dipped like 3 weeks ago. I haven't seen him since. This comes from Benjamin. He said, question, score prediction for the Lions this Thursday.
Oh, man, why are we doing this? Is it crazy? I haven't really watched them in preseason, but I am excited about Jahmyr Gibbs. They're playing Kansas City on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on, give me a second. I'm going to look this. I'm just going to look something up real quick. Well, I have 35 on my mind.
I do too.
35 for the Pistons, for the Lions. Are they? I know a lot of people don't love Jared Goff, but wow, okay, they're only scoring in the 20s in preseason, but they're not even always playing their full-time starters. Yeah, I'm gonna say the Lions score 35 points, and wrong of me to say the Kansas City Chiefs win by like a touchdown in the final minutes of the game?
I got them winning by a field goal.
Okay.
I got 38-35 Chiefs. I think it's just going to be a dogfight. I have a lot of faith in the Lions this year. Probably the most faith I've had probably since, the Megatron days and the Ndamukong Suh days. But I think the Chiefs might edge one out on the Lions like 38-35. I think it'll be a really good game. And, dude, I can't wait. Like, you got football season back. You got a team that I think a lot of people in the city are really excited for. There's been so much hype with the Lions, with their draft and everything like that. So I think, 38-35 would be my prediction.
35-42 for me.
Okay. Like I said, I think, it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be a shootout for sure.
I wonder who leads the team in rushing. Is it David Montgomery or Jamar Gibbs? Probably David Montgomery, but I'm in a fantasy football league. It's our 9th year, and I'm the commissioner. Had to keep it going. My buddy texts me, and he's like, dude, I drafted Jamar Gibbs in like the 3rd round. I think that's where it was. I'm like, I think he's going to have a great rookie year. I could see at least 500 receiving and 500 rushing yards for Jamar Gibbs his rookie year in the NFL. I think that's pretty fair. I think he could do it. And then Ben Johnson's talking about using him different ways, like ways we've never even thought we could use him. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, like I said, I think, they have a great, running back 1-2. Obviously, I was kind of sad to see Jamal Williams go, but David Montgomery, stud. Jamar Gibbs, I think, is going to be more of a receiver than a running back, in my opinion, just based on like football people that I talk to, that I go for like my football stuff, told me like, he's probably going to be like a Alvin Kamara, like in New Orleans. So,
that's gonna be exciting.
Yeah, so I'm excited for the Lions, even at like a casual Lions fan. Like I don't claim to be an expert in football at all. I'm not. I'm like a novice. I think they'll have a good year though. I'm excited.
Same. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, at least we got to have one winner in the city of Detroit, man. We can't all be bad at the same time.
I don't want to be a Michigan Panthers fan. I want to be a Lions fan.
Shout out to the Panthers. Let's see. Ooh, it's a great question from Bravo. He asked, who do you, I think he forgot to say think. Who do you think out of this Pistons young players can be the X factor for us besides Cade? I think Ivy for me.
Yeah, I mean, Ivy would be at the top of the list. I do think if Duran can step it up defensively, that's going to be huge for the Pistons. I think that would be bigger than Ivy averaging 21 a game. Duran to me could be the X factor outside of Cade if he really turns that corner defensively. Like if he looks like a baby Dwight Howard defensively, yeah, that's a huge X factor in my opinion for the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah, for X factor, I think it's going to be Duran.
Nice.
I think Duran is going to be a guy that's, you got Cade Cunningham, you got Jaden Ivey, you got Bojan. I think Duran is going to have an opportunity to be a player that maybe he doesn't get a lot of the offensive attention on him when teams are game planning. And he'll have an opportunity to be that X factor because, people aren't going to be trying to study what his tendencies are because they're going to be so hyper-focused on Bojan and Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities for him, around the rim to just get easy baskets.
Is it weird for me to think that I don't think Jaden Ivey will get a lot of defensive attention at the beginning of the season? Like, I feel like a lot of people around the league, and I also kind of get the feeling a lot of teams around the league are putting him on the back burner and not taking him serious. He had a good year, and he really made some huge leaps and bounds as a player. For some reason, I just think teams not taking him seriously as a player, and I think he's going to fly under the radar for a couple of months at the beginning of the season.
I think he could, just for the fact that he's not playing point guard anymore.
Yeah.
Cade is, and he's playing shooting guard now. And you'll see him probably do more in the, cutting to the basket, being more of a slasher than just like a spot up 3-point shooter or handling the ball or facilitating the offense. From that aspect, I can understand it, but I still think a main focus of this Pistons offense is going to be centered around Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey. I still think they're going to be two players that every team game plans for.
I mean, I think they ultimately do, but I also see like they'll be talking like about him on like ESPN where they're like, yeah, the Pistons, they look pretty good. They got Cade, they got Asar, they got Duran. Isaiah Stewart really developed, and then someone like a Jalen Rose, even though he's not from ESPN, be like, hey, don't be sleeping on my boy Jaden Ivey. Like, I feel like Jaden Ivey's just the guy that people will kind of like Joe Dumars for the Pistons. You know what I'm saying? When you think of the bad boys, you don't instantly think of Joe Dumars. You think of Isaiah Thomas, Dennis Rodman, Bill Laimbeer, Rick Mahorn. You don't necessarily think of Joe Dumars, and I feel like that's kind of what that's what I think it's gonna be like for Jaden Ivey.
Yeah, I think he'll have a good season. I think he'll be a guy that like he could low key average 20 points a game this season with the Pistons. Like I'm not even kidding. Like I think
21.
He could honestly do that. Like I wouldn't be surprised if he did at all. This is a question from Aaron, which I didn't really pay too much attention to this, but maybe you did. Has to do with Coach Casey and something he hated. He said, one thing I hated about Casey was the 30 minutes per game or less for everyone. Do you guys think Monty finally gives our guys a normal 34 plus minutes a game?
I hate that about the NBA too. Like I miss the days where one guy's getting like 37, 38, 39 minutes per game. Because that's why I always thought like basketball players were superheroes, in a sense where I'm like, I don't know a lot of people that can go out there and run and play basketball at a high level for 39 minutes per game. You know what I'm saying? That's a lot of time to be running around and you got to be really well conditioned. But then I see like Giannis averages like 31 or 32 minutes per game, which I think it's great for what he puts up. And just like, I just didn't think you could even put up those kind of numbers in 31 minutes per game. But yeah, I hated that about Casey. And it's just something I've noticed a lot in the NBA. You don't see guys averaging a lot of minutes. And I hope Monty does. I hope Cade plays 34, 35, 36 minutes per game. I'm going to hate only seeing him for like, if he averages like 28 to 32, I'm going to be kind of annoyed this year. I know he's coming back from injury, but I want to see these guys play some bigger minutes for the Pistons.
Hate to disappoint you, Aaron, but I don't think you're going to see anyone over 30 minutes a game, especially with this team's injury history. It's just it's not a team that has been historically healthy over the past couple of seasons, especially getting your franchise player back. They're probably going to be really careful with his minutes. Could probably see Cade around like 27, 28 minutes. Maybe 30 minutes in that. Like it's just you have to be careful with injuries. I could see Bojan playing way less minutes than he did last year because he's getting up there in age. Now, the younger guys that don't really have a lot of injury history, like Ivy, Duran, yeah, maybe you can see them 32, 34 minutes a night. But franchise player like Cade, they're probably going to monitor him and baby him like crazy.
So this past year with the Phoenix Suns, Mikal Bridges, before he was traded, was averaging 36 minutes per game. Devin Booker was averaging 34. Or 35 if you round up. Kevin Durant was averaging 34 if you round up. Chris Paul was 32. DeAndre Ayton was 30. Cameron Johnson was 25 minutes per game. Play the starters, heavy minutes. I got no problem with that. I get the injury concerns, especially with Cade and everything, but I'm going to be disappointed if he only averages like 27, 28 minutes per game. That's going to suck.
I just think to start the season, I think maybe potentially you can. I don't want to see him come out first 5 games of the season. He's averaging 37 minutes a game because he's just going to be exhausted by All-Star break. I think there could be situations where Monte Morris plays a lot more if the game is close, because he's a guy that doesn't turn the ball over a lot, and he could just be a veteran guard out there that could close the game out there with maybe Cade. I wouldn't be surprised if Monte Morris plays in the high 20s as a backup point guard.
Yeah, I could see him getting like 24 minutes per game.
For sure. That's a great question, though, Aaron. That's not something I really stay up at night and think about, but that's why we love this Q&A section, because you guys ask questions that me and Lance probably wouldn't even think about, honestly. Ooh, this is a good one. I'm going to get to Michael's question, but what's ranked the Central Division?
Give me a second. We're going for this year before the season starts.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry about the dead air.
It's okay.
Got to see the list of teams in here now. Let's do this. So we got the Bulls, the Cavaliers, the Pistons, the Pacers, and the Milwaukee Bucks. Milwaukee number 1, Cavaliers number 2, Pacers number 3, Pistons number 4, Bulls number 5.
Okay. Don't hate it, but I see where you're going with it. If I'm going based off of, just win projections and where I think the teams will be, I think I would go Bucks 1 like you. I'm going to go. I want to put Pacers 2, but I don't think they're there yet. I'll put Cavs 2. Pacers 3. Bulls 4, just because they have DeMar DeRozan and Nikola Vucevic, and they're a veteran team.
Don't even forget about Zach LaVine.
And Zach LaVine. I want to put the Pistons 4. I do. I think the Pistons will eventually jump the Bulls because they're a lot older. But as of right now, I will put the Pistons 5, but they are on the come up, and I think they will be a top 4 team in the Central Division, and possibly a top 3 team. Because I think the Pacers and the Pistons rivalry, I've said it on this podcast multiple times, I think it's going to rekindle new memories and new rivalries because they have a really great team, great front court. They have a franchise player and Tyrese Halliburton, a great veteran NBA coach, and Rick Carlisle. I think it's just got the makings of, Pistons versus Pacers 2.0 rivalry. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, the Bulls do look good on paper. Don't get me wrong. They do look. Can you believe that Andre Drummond only played 13 minutes per game for them last year?
I do.
That's crazy.
If you look at the coaches, you'd understand it.
Yeah, Billy Donovan, I get that. They still averaged 6 rebounds, and dude, he still did his thing. 6.7 rebounds per game. Good for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the Bulls could really, I don't know. I'm going to have them 5th. I think the Pistons will be better than them.
Okay, I can respect it. It's just, I think the Bulls are going to come out and they're going to have a great season if everyone's healthy. I mean, Nikola Vucevic, great low post center. Doesn't play a lick of defense, but great center.
Yeah, exactly. Great offense.
Yeah, DeMar DeRozan, mid-range king. Seems like I would text you. I was like, man, Cade looks like DeMar DeRozan out there.
Yep.
They're like the Spider-Man meme in terms of mid-range, because it just looks so identical out there.
Doesn't play like a defense though.
No. Zach LaVine could give you 30 on any given night. Just an explosive athlete. I think offensively, they have a lot of firepower, and defensively, you have Alex Caruso. Sucks about Lonzo Ball. Like if Lonzo Ball was healthy, I'd arguably have them above Cleveland, but he's not.
Okay, so this is DeMar DeRozan. Does this surprise you? I'm looking at DeMar DeRozan right now.
Mm-hmm.
6 All-Star appearances and 3 All-NBA teams. Does that seem right?
Yeah.
For DeMar DeRozan? I mean, the All-Star appearances, 6 seems so low, and like only 3 All-NBA teams. It's so weird how we talk about some of these players, man. Because some guys would have you thinking DeMar DeRozan's like the second coming of Kobe Bryant, and no.
Yeah, I mean, it's when you read it, it's kind of like, wow, really? Only that much? But yeah, I mean that it sounds about right. I'll do one more question because we've been on here for 2 hours.
Exactly 2 hours is crazy.
Yeah, like I said, Q&A sometimes it's just it gets out of hand. This comes from Rashid Wallace's bald spot. Back-to-back weeks. Back-to-back weeks. He's actually a new listener to the podcast, so shout out to him. He said, should the Pistons look to trade Bojan this year or keep him? I know we've talked about this topic ad nauseum, but maybe you have a new take on it.
No, my take is pretty much the same. I say roll with him and Burks, and if the season is over by All-Star break or by the trade deadline, I would try to move him. I would try to get either draft capital or I guess bring in a young player and see what they can do. But if the Pistons are winning games up until the All-Star break, I say keep them and just roll with the roster and see what they can do. I mean, put yourself in position to actually compete this year. And I think Bojan helps you. But if the season's over early, trade him. Let him get him out of Detroit.
So for me, I think the Pistons should keep him. I think they will keep him. And it's not that they can't get a good package for him, because I think there are teams out there that will offer the Pistons quite a bit. I think the Lakers are going to be in rumors like crazy. I think you'll see Cam Reddish and Jackson Hayes packages probably in the next 5 months. I can already see it and envision it. But I would rather keep him for veteran leadership and just his expertise from stretching the floor, being a good floor spacer, being a guy that can teach these younger guys how to come off screens, because he's an expert in that. I don't think that's something that you can get out of a trade. And I just don't think teams are willing to give you a whole lot for a 33, 34-year-old guy. You're not going to get multiple first-round picks like the Pistons said they wanted. Yeah. You're not going to get all these young assets like the Pistons say that they want. I think you might get maybe a guy on a bigger contract, and if you're lucky, maybe a really late first-round pick or early second. I think you're better off holding on to a guy like Bojan because he offers more than you can probably get in the trade market.
That's a good point. Yeah, but again, I don't think they trade him unless the season's over.
Yeah, I mean, unless everyone gets hurt, like God forbid, I don't want that to happen. I think he's going to be on this team for the foreseeable future. I think he's a guy that the Pistons like, and I think Bojan likes playing here. He seems like, even though we haven't seen him like at all. I think he's just been. I want to say he's from Croatia. I apologize if I did get that wrong, but I feel like he's just over in Europe just chilling. I feel like all those European guys, once the season's over, you don't see them until training camp.
I don't blame him.
They don't care where the check's coming from as long as they're getting it. They don't care.
100%.
But why don't you tell the people where they can find the podcast and how they can support it?
Before you guys do all that, make sure to follow me on Twitter at LansCapRossi. Follow my boy Anthony at Pistons Talk on Twitter and across all social media platforms. But thank you guys for listening to the Pistons Talk podcast. But do us a favor, go to Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe. After you subscribe, leave a review, drop a rating. But more importantly, tell a Pistons fan